This is probably my most requested video on the channel, so strap in because we aren't just going to be going over diver weapons, but all diver items in this tier list. And some of y'all might be like, but Ultis, aren't you a shark main? Yes, hush little Timmy, I may be a shark main, but I do have well over 4,500 diver games, so we can conclude two things. One, I have no life, and two, I played way too much diver. Now, keep in mind every diver I talk with has a different opinion on each gun, and thus this tier list is solely my opinion. And it's okay if you disagree, everyone has the right to be wrong. Alright, let's get into this tier list in which I will briefly go over each weapon so as to make sure the video is not too long, but I am just going to say that every single item in this tier list is going to be ranked on a system of kill power to cost to just overall usefulness and versatility, so every single item, since they kind of have different functions, they're just going to be ranked in different ways from each other. At the very bottom, and sole member of Turd tier, we have Heavy Jet Revolver. It looks cool and sounds cool, but in practice, it's even less effective than those power balance bracelets that claim to allow you to stand without falling or something. While the Heavy Jet deals more damage the further away the shark is, it's just useless against sharks who are either slightly tanky or know what they're doing as a speed shark. It should just really never be used. It's even worse than the Gyro Pistol. Now, coming in the bottom of D tier, we have the Gyro Pistol, or Gyro Pistol, and I'm not talking about a taco pistol. It's basically the same as Heavy Jet, except you feel like you get more kills because it has a faster rate of fire and more bullets. This being said, it's still weaker than practically every other weapon in the game, even with its penetrating upgrade, thus earning its place in D tier. Next up in D tier, we have the EMP Mine. It's the Sea Mine, but worse. Because instead of killing a shark and knocking them down a ticket as a normal mine would, the EMP Mine gives the shark a jolly old slap on the wrist saying, "Hey buckaroo, you messed up a little this time, but it's alright sport, why don't you head out of here and try again in 1 second when my effect wears off." It's literally 3/4 the price of a regular mine and only slightly hinders the shark. Here's what it looks like from the shark's perspective. Oh wow, the hindrance is overwhelming. Whatever will I do? Now for C tier, and at the bottom of C tier, we have the AAP8 pistol, the gun that embodies quantity over quality. The only positive I really see for the AAP8 is that it's good at inflicting modifier damage such as bleed and toxic. It's also good at tag, due to its insane fire rate, but overall, you would just do more damage calling the shark a doo-doo head in chat. Like, it really doesn't deal that much damage. Now, I might actually get some contention with this placement, as I usually see a lot of people using it, but in my mind, it's the same situation as the Gyro Pistol. Like, why get it when there are clearly better and cheaper options? Next in C tier, we have the medkits, a very situational item that is only used to really make Thresher mains cry, attempt to stop Makos early on in the game, and to counter those silly sharkies who go serrated teeth in the beginning. Other than these specific situations, the medkit can be decent when trying to hunker down in a specific spot to wait out the time, but other than that, they are just not as valuable as many other things you could grab instead. Because of that, I've placed medkit in C tier. Up next is probably one of the most controversial ones, and that's going to be the DPV. While yes, it is fun to be big zoom zoom, I have found that if there's a match where someone goes DPV and does well, generally we would have won the match by a lot with or without the DPVer. In fact, I can name more matches where I have lost because the DPVer doesn't know when to stop using lives than matches won solely because of that DPVer. To put more simply, the DPV is more of a luxury item that is fun to use when you are likely to win anyways, rather than an item that often changes the tide of the game. Next in C tier, we have the Spear Pistol. It's not that special as it has pretty bad DPS. The only reason it's placed in C tier and not lower is because, one, it's good at improving your aim with single shot weapons and is how I trained my aim in depth, and two, it's a good cheap weapon if you need to be utilizing stuff like sonar and drag in the early game, but overall, unfortunately, this weapon, while fun, is just pretty meh. Next in C tier is the Gyro Rifle. Unfortunately, it too is not a taco gun. Wasted opportunity. Just imagine shooting tacos at the sharks, that would be awesome. But in this dimension, it, like the gyro pistol, shoots swirling water or air pockets that deals more damage the further it goes. I mean, that does sound pretty badass, not taco shooting badass, but still badass, which makes it a god dang shame that this weapon isn't better than it is. Like, it's got a lot of bullets, but little damage, and the money spent on it would be way better spent on weapons in the upper tiers. Now, at the top of C tier, we have the Shark Shield. Now, let me just say, this item could actually be B tier or even A tier in some situations. But because of how uncommon it's used to turn the tides of the game, and the fact that I actually view all of the items in B tier to be just a little bit better, I stuck it into C tier. As for its function, Shark Shields are like a punchline. They're better used at the end. However, if you're going against a speed shark, they tend to wipe out Shark Shields kind of without consequence. And if they have eyes and can still see the divers and kill them, these bad boys are pretty situational, and only for matches that's like a Steve win is very close on the horizon, and that's basically about it. Now, I know there's going to be some contention with this one too, because a lot of people get annoyed by them, but I feel like a lot of experienced shark players kind of learn how to handle shark shields and kind of just play around them and still do what they need to do. Like, I've never really had an issue with shark shields like in my past few thousand games. Now it's time to move on to B tier, and what better to start with than Santa's sack, that is, the supply kit. There is really nothing bad about this other than the fact that it's expensive, but it gives you and your homies sonars, flares, and a single mine to goof off with, so I mean, you can't really complain with this item. Up next in B tier, we have the sonar buoy. It can be useful in spotting a shark, but usually just ends up getting destroyed by the shark after pinging them once, assuming the shark knows what they're doing. Like, they have good range and keep the sharks at bay for the most part, but unfortunately just get destroyed way too quick. However, they start getting really good when everyone starts buying them and mass placing them to keep tabs on the sharks. Like, they can definitely scale. Up next, and even more underrated than the live-action M. Night Shyamalan Avatar movie... Psych, jokes, please put the pitchforks away. But for real, the sensor is likely the most underrated and overlooked utility in the game. This is because divers have a huge unfair advantage if they know where the sharks are entering from, and this sensor can tell you exactly that. Not to mention the fact that if all 4 divers go sensors, just fuck the shark stealth. Straight up, the shark will be revealed the whole match unless they're a lemon shark. Like, GG's to them. Next in B tier, we have the weapon of choice for trolls and people with high ping, the Sea Mine. Honestly, there really isn't much to be said about them. They're just easily cheesable by the sharks, but also if placed well are able to knock out an entire shark ticket and potentially change the tide of the game. But that's kind of about it. They're pretty self-explanatory. Next in B tier, we have the Pat, which are basically small chrome homies with aimbot and separation anxiety. They can literally follow you to your next location if you want them to. It's kind of adorable, but if they are away from you, generally they'll just die pretty fast. Now, these little guys excel in not missing shots against highlighted sharks, so having tagging on your guns or sonar buoys and flares really compounds their effectiveness. The only downside to these lads is actually a big one, and that is if the sharks know what they are doing. The Pat bots just become a money sink because they are expensive to get, yet get destroyed by a shark in just one hit. All in all though, they're definitely an upper B tier. Up next in B tier, we have the knife. Now, hold up. I know you might be thinking, Ultis, how is my stick put in B tier? Well, how many sharks have you shanked while they were thrashing you? Chances are you've killed more sharks with the knife than a lot of weapons because of its handiness after you get grabbed. Like, that itself has got to put it at least in B tier. Or else you would just be having a long-ass staring contest with the shark while it's thrashing you. Also, not to mention the fact that the knife makes you swim quicker when you're just holding it. It's a solid B tier item. For the last weapon in B tier, we have the Scrump, which is basically budget ADS with mongo less damage. The main method to the gun is spray and pray with modifier damage and hope you can track the shark to land enough bullets in it to kill it. Honestly, it's not a bad weapon, and I find myself using it fairly often, against spastic speed sharks mainly in order to apply bleed to them, but it's not exactly A tier material, which is why it's placed here. Also, I just want to take a minute and say that if you guys are enjoying this video, please be sure to leave a like, as it really does help the algorithm for a tiny little shork like me, and if you subscribe and join my kind sir kingdom, our army is always growing and would love to have you join the ranks. Also, join my Discord. Alright, enough of that mushy gushy stuff, we got a tier list to finish. Now we are moving on to the big boys, the items you generally want to be grabbing often because we're going to be going through A tier. At the bottom of A tier and super underrated, we have the flare. These boys are cheap as heck, and when thrown to reveal the shark, they cannot be broken, and only go away when the time duration is used up. They're basically sonar buoys, but like just a little bit more useful in dire situations or when going against speed sharks. It is a solid A tier item. Next up in A tier, we have the net gun, an item that will make even demons look back at you nervously. Like, this weapon is the one that you use to either counter sharks like Bull, Hammer, or Great White, or just because you're the villain of the story. However, despite it being a little dubious of a weapon, I can't deny how useful it is. It literally stops sharks in their tracks, allowing them to take bunches of damage before being able to thrash out of the nets, if they even survive it. However, since I tend to see a lot of people rage quit because of this weapon, I feel obligated here to give some advice on countering them. One is that white tips shred through nets like a hot knife through butter. It's like the actual net counter. And another is using blindside and razor fins, with razor fins being more directly correlated to helping shred through nets faster. Anyways, next up in A tier we have the SPP-1 pistol. Now, this is the weapon that I first started getting good with in this game, and thus will always hold a special place in my heart, but I cannot not talk about how it is inherently weaker than its counterpart pistol, the P11. There is a myth about these two pistols that the P11 has an extra bullet, but the SPP-1 shoots faster, and unfortunately, while this sounds like a neat way to try and equalize the two, it's just not true. They in fact have the same fire rate, but the SPP-1 has 4 bullets instead of 5 like the P11. And I cannot tell you how many times that last bullet has saved my life in killing the shark instead of the other way around, making the SPP-1 quite weaker. However, this isn't to say that the SPP-1 is a bad weapon in the slightest. It's still an upper A tier weapon for a reason and can be used very effectively. Now for quite possibly my second or third favorite weapon in the game, we have the spear gun. Known for making Mako mains and Thresher mains around the world weep, the spear gun is an exceptionally strong weapon against light sharks and in some scenarios tank sharks as well. The fact that they can deal a lot of damage in one shot and is also capable of applying things like drag, sonar, tox, and bleed makes it easily one of the best weapons in the game. Like, there isn't really much else to be said about this weapon, it's just big bueno. Now for my favorite weapon in the entire game, and at the top end of A tier we have the weapon of kings, the bang stick. That's right, the Snoot Boopinator 3000 is absolutely an underrated weapon that I only recently started seeing other people use more frequently. I'm also hoping this increase is from my videos because I praise this weapon so dang much. But yeah, the bang stick is probably the hardest weapon to master, but when you do, it's such a satisfying and fun weapon, and really just forces the sharks to think before attacking mindlessly, and thus can definitely slow them down. However, as mentioned before, it does take time and patience in order to use effectively, but when you master it, the sharks will learn to fear you for sure. We have now reached S tier, so all these weapons are basically going to be the best of the best. And for the first weapon and bottom of S tier, we have the ADS rifle. By far one of the best and most solid weapons in the game, the ADS rifle has insane kill power with its DPS, and causes many sharks to just start quaking in their fins once they realize what weapon they're going up against. There isn't too much else to say other than just shoot a shark and the shark tends to die quickly. It's just OP. Up next in S tier, we have the APS rifle. This is such a powerful weapon, and the reason it's ranked so highly is solely because of the heavy barrel upgrade. Without this upgrade, it has a DPS of 319, but with the heavy barrel, it has a DPS of 497. Now, some of you might be wondering why it's placed above the ADS, a weapon with a DPS of 525. Well, that's because a single magazine from APS lasts way longer than the ADS. And this results in a larger, more consistent overall damage that can easily take out both sharks in one sprayage. And combine it with the splitting upgrade for the speed sharks, and oh lordy, the sharks are in for a bad time. Next in S tier, we have the P11, a shooty boy that gets the job done at any stage of the game. Now, I know some of y'all may be confused with this placement, but with a DPS of 500, this weapon is basically a budget ADS that you can literally get fully maxed out during Safe 1. Just let that sink in. This is absolutely the strongest starting weapon in the game and can even be used to dominate in the late game too. In fact, I have so many runs where I just end up using it the entire match and still crush because it's just pointless to buy another gun. Its kill power in relation to its cost just make it one of the best guns in the game by far. Next in S tier, we have the ultimate one-shot, one-kill weapon, the Harpoon. Being the strongest single-shot weapon in the entire game, this weapon, with penetrating upgrade, can kill any shark in the game in one shot, with the exception of a max rage bull that has an upgraded ability and a great white with its ability active. But even with those sharks, it won't take much at all to kill them after a mere single shot, meaning if your teammates are also shooting the shark, they're very likely to die without securing any kill. There isn't too much else with this weapon other than the fact that it costs a lot in order to balance it, but once you get it and its upgrade, generally the game is over for the sharks. Finally, we have come to the strongest weapon in the game, the Donut of Death, also known as the Volley Jet. With the Poon acting as the sniper of the game, the Volley Jet is the only true shotgun of the game, but god dang is it overpowered. Not only does it have the highest DPS at 600, but it's also rather cheap, costing only 3,000 gold for what it is. Not to mention, it has one of the strongest and most disgusting attachments, drag, and it can add bleed or toxic to its shots. Also, this weapon is just one of the strongest choices against every single shark in the game. It has no weaknesses when it comes to sharks. With all of this said, I highly recommend not using the Death Donut. Hell, I refuse to use this weapon except for two pretty rare scenarios, either if the sharks are toxic players or I happen to be losing bad. Literally any other scenario of using it and you'll likely be making newer shark players quit this already small game community before even giving it a chance. It's just not a respectful weapon choice to use, and in my opinion should only ever be used in the scenarios I mentioned previously. I don't know, man. It's just a really gross weapon. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the— Wait. No, it can't be. S+ rank? Oh no, that could only mean one thing. In S+ tier, we have an item that would make Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet or One Punch Man's fists jealous. The Welder. An insta-kill weapon for the low price of hecking free. The Welder dominates the oceans and destroys any organism in its path. Bro, this is the one weapon that makes my boots quake. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Now I will show the full tier list for just a few seconds for you beautiful shorks to screenshot before scrambling it into a goober tier list for anyone who just skips to the end of the video. Lol, I'm kind of evil. Alright, well it's gonna get scrambled now. As I said, I hope you all enjoyed this video as it was probably my most requested video on the channel, and I was kind of waiting until I hit 1K subs in order to make it as a special thank you video to you all. Now, quickly, I know with videos like these you will always get people disagreeing with you, but hopefully with my reasoning for each placement you can understand why it was constructed the way it was. I also have to say that this tier list is only created to show what the strongest weapons are, not necessarily the most fun one, so play with whatever weapon you enjoy rather than whatever weapon is the most meta. Trust me, if you play what you enjoy, you won't regret it. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.